Um, so my name's Armin. I'm the president of the ICOBC. Thank you on behalf of the ICOBC for joining us today. We want to discuss at the junction of human potential and technology today. Probably for all of us, the latest advancements of AI have very much impressed us, and the capacity of generative AI to fill those knowledge gaps and to make sense of fragments is just remarkable. So we now have tools that can help us develop and track and improve our skills in ways we couldn't probably imagine just a few months ago. And yet there are some challenges with innovation, of course. For in our field, it's pretty much the questions: how do we validate AI-based skill inventories, for example? How do we ensure the accuracy of the information and the integrity of the process? And here's where the beauty of open badges and verifiable credentials come in. They can play a key role in this verification, providing a trusted, standardized means of affirming our skills and competencies. So just let's stop this thing here and discuss, learn, and how we can share and shape the future of talent development. Thank you for joining us, specifically for Anu from Head AI, Elena from Lightcast, and Jake from LinkedIn, if he shows up. Thanks for joining us and getting on the panel. Lots of room in the end for questions. And thanks for Jan from the ICOBC, Jan Müller, for facilitating the whole event. And over to you, Jan.
Yes, wait a second. Thank you very much, Armin, for the invitation. I would actually just hand over to Rolf, who will give a quick introduction, also an overview over the coming 45 minutes. We have a great panel with 3 speakers, and I'm very curious to hear them. And also maybe just a side note, at the end, we will have some time to discuss some topics with the presenters. So if you feel like you have a question that you would like to have discussed afterwards, please write it in the chat. We will pick 2, 3 of the maybe most pressing or interesting questions and then ask them later. So I would like to hand over to Rolf, who gives an introduction to the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Rolf. I'm, like a member of the executive committee at the International Council on Badges and Credentials. And I'm also, involved in a range of other organizations, among which is also LinkedIn, where we have been discussing the skills approach since quite some time. So another organization or network that I'm involved in is the Skills Data Space for Europe. So an initiative where we're thinking about, what are actually emerging skills? How do skills relate to occupations? What are, trends? And how to bridge the individual skill gaps. And throughout these organizations, I've come across various experts in the field. One of it is Anu from Head AI. And what I found really interesting is, you as an organization, when you're working in an organization, this idea of knowing what skills your organization possesses and what skills are actually needed to get to either attract, hire, or develop internally, or potentially, borrow, like subcontract, is at the heart of everything. The question is just, would the traditional methods of the formal taxonomies, etc., help you here to, bridge the gap of what you don't know, potentially also the awareness of skills someone possesses that they are not even, able to describe or to name. And yeah, here we have Anu from Head AI, and they have a solution. I think it's pretty cool, how to assess skill sets, how to potentially get rid of the traditional notion of a taxonomy that's often like a big barrier when we are talking about that topic. And yeah, just open the floor to you, Anu, and would give you also the possibility to present your ideas and your solution.
Thank you so much, Rolf, and thank you, Armin and Jan. Wonderful to be here, part of this webinar, and together discussing these very crucial topics, timely topics like AI, skills, tech for the talent development. So yes, my name is Anu Passirauste, company Head AI. We are from Finland, deep tech company coming from Finland. So let me open my presentation here. Here we go. Yes. So let's go to the topic where when we think about our navigation today, we really face in this rapidly evolving world these core challenges, core questions. How can we future-proof our organizations? And when we are dealing now with the skills, how can we really figure out those essential skills that help us to build the strategy, to execute our strategy? And what are those skills to develop? And that's exactly, now our AI is now in our language, so we can now take that also in this field. And in Head AI, we unravel these questions and these answers by unlocking the valuable insights from scattered skills data. But what is this skills data now? So let's talk about that. And let me start with the topic that data is, first of all, everywhere. So data is all around us. And when we look at the data, we might think about the CVs, the curriculums, or the job ads. But to establish really an effective skills inventories, which is also the name of our webinar, we must go beyond these type of traditional HR approaches, not limit to the people's data like CVs. That's very crucial to have CVs, job profiles, these descriptions, but also go beyond the training providers' data like courses and curriculums and look really the daily documents of organizations. What is there in the project documents, in tenders, strategies, R&D documents? And that's the idea where we really can go and see these diverse sources and enable us to get really the comprehensive skills inventory. Not only what's actually the skills just right now, but also project the future needs. So when we are dealing with the talent development, what is it in the 1 to 2 years, what we should look? How can we get that actually from the strategies, from investments, product documents, and even go to the longer term, like 2 to 5 years even, and turn those strategies into the skills data. So we really see the skills data being there in our daily work. But how can we then use this type of a skills data when the problem is exactly what we already heard in the beginning, that is, it's really scattered, and it's in different systems, it's in different languages, there are those different ontologies, there are different contexts. People have been written there, those ones, and it's written, and it lacks the structure and the interoperability. And that is the topic area what we are now tackling with the technology, and really going beyond the ontologies and taxonomies and taking the language models to help us to make the skills data into the actionable insight. And I'd like to go in that in practice. What is it all about? So we use our Head AI and the language model to extract from any data sets the skills, the meaningful words that are related to the job world and our daily work. And that's what we call snapshot. It's the meaningful words taken from the strategy, from the project documents, and AI helping us to find those meaningful skills words. We can go and look the snapshots from the different years and start to see the trends, the upcoming skills words. How are they evolving? How can that tell us and give the signals for the development, where we should focus, and take that even from our R&D data. So those daily documents, what are giving us the insight for the signals. But the true value comes when we can start to compare different data sets and context and take the AI to help to find the spots and identify the skills gaps, which is very actual in our talent development discussion. So we can't do any skills gap analysis if we don't have the kind of a target stage, for example, from the strategies and the current stage from our job descriptions, and then we can let the machine analyze these type of gaps from the data. And that's also how we have searched, for example, World Bank in strengthening digitalization in Philippines. So we have taken a huge amount of job ads, like 50K job ads from different job portals. And together with the 10 universities curriculums, let the AI analyze and do the analysis on what is the skills demand and what is the skills offering. And that's a work, analysis work that we can't really anymore let the people do or human do. So therefore, the tools, the AI analytics are there. And this is the visualization, what is really given for the education professionals, for them to have the insight for their education development, the curriculum development. What are there that matches, the color coding blue for that? What is the demand in green? And how can we start to see and give this insight for the education professionals that, hey, these are coming from the data. Give the basis for the discussion and for their decision making. What are the matches? What are the mismatches? And make visibles from the data which skills they should actually put their dollars and invest in order to fit better with the labor market. Good. So now we have spot the skills gaps, but what then next? And that's actually also, again, if you think about this approach, we can take another data set and take the AI to help us to figure out and have the compass for development and guidance for us to reach the goals. And we can take again one more data set or resource to fill the gap. And that's what we call compass. So here we already have kind of a different context put together with the help of AI. And I'd like to now show this example in our Head AI platform. So let me go. So what you can also do, please, after the webinar, of course, go to the Head AI website and you can take different type of sorry, now it's not sharing. I do that, share the screen quickly here. Yeah, so please, here is the Head AI website where you can have these type of different use cases, how to unlock your own potential, or this type of a curriculum development, future-proofing education, or even think about the sustainable strategies for smart cities. And in this case here, now it's showing, and I have a colleague next to me. It's not showing this one. Sorry, I'm struggling now what to share, and sorry, may I ask, can you see our platform, Head AI platform now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay,
we can see
then
platform.headai.com.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much. Yeah. So here and I had just a friend next to me ensuring that I have a good week. Yes, but let's go back to the use case. How can we take? Let's be an HR director in the company called Rovio, close to our home. The designers, game developers known for the Angry Birds. And here I have a skills inventory of all of our game developers. I have put those job profiles together and let the AI squeeze together what are the skills related to this game development. I can go closer and see how the things are related to each other. What is related to like application development, product design, words that the AI has taken from the text from those job descriptions. As an AI director, I'm interested because the game development is all about data analysis. How can I understand now what are the critical skills related to data scientists' role, and how can I embed that also in our game developers' roles? And here I can do and compare this game developer CV to another data set, being that, for example, the overall demand in EU, or other different type of scorecards. And on that, I can see what are those more data scientist demanded skills. It's all about services, building services around data. It goes more into the data administration. There are different kind of the law, managing data spaces, all these different skills, and see the clusters, how they are related to each other, these meaningful words. But the real value is actually the score, when I can do the comparison and get the bright colors. What is the game developer skills? What is the demand, and how those are compared, and how to really start to figure out those areas. How can I develop our game developers in these data science skills? And definitely, it's a lot about the business intelligence and those type of skills. But in order to really get into this upskilling quicker, go into the micro credentials, I'm also happy to get kind of recommendations for the spotted skills gap and take that for example, from LinkedIn Learning or other platforms. So that's how we can combine those different data sets. You are welcome to explore our platform or even look at the API calls and play those in the Postman type of a service. So that's the use case. How can we take the different contexts together and play with the data and really get the data to help us in the decision making? And let me go now back to my presentation. So that's so altogether, data interoperability we can do with the meanings. And these are the challenges we couldn't do before. But now with the AI, with the computational power, we are capable for doing that. But let me finalize with the roles note. This is about the ecosystem building. We need all these players in order to tackle the skills-related challenges. So we need the employers, we need the education providers, we need the policymakers. At the center, we have the humans. That is also what I am excited to tell what is EU now approaching a lot. How can we build really a human-centric, trusted ecosystem and make the data flow? And that's what we in HEDI do. We enable the data to flow and make the data to bring us insights in this talent development. And while we are doing that, we are coloring the world of data. Thank you so much for this and looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much, Anu. And I've also copied the link to the skills data space into the chat, because I think what's also great here is to use that not only for like an organization, but in a broader context. We'll say like for a workforce developer or so, within a region, how could, for example, like traditional education providers work alongside their corporate partners and so on, and municipalities, to look into how can we, like cover the skill gaps. And what I also loved about your platform is, this idea about like internal mobility, or also this idea of reskilling, not only like upskilling, but to understand what is the potential pathway and how can I do potentially like maybe like a shortcut in order to get to a certain other job role that's opened internally or externally as well. And for the external jobs, we actually have an organization here, absolutely the expert, I would say, in analyzing job openings and looking also into what are the skills required for these job openings and how do they change. And like I was very much impressed, Elena from Lightcast, when I saw your presentation at the ICOBC symposium in the year 2022, when you gave us like an overview about this massive amount of data from jobs from various platforms, like, and also the insights that you had there, and to which extent they would affect also this narrative where we're talking more and more about skills and maybe less about like the traditional credentials. And I'm very happy that you're here today, and we're curious also about the data that you're showing us today. Elena, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Rolf, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here with you today. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it.
Yes, we can
great.
see it, yes.
Thank you. So as Rolf said, Elena Magrini, I'm head of global research at Lightcast. For a bit of introduction about Lightcast, Lightcast is the world's leading authority on data provision on jobs, skills, and workforce talents. Basically, we use our data and different solutions to try and help companies understand their skills needs, organizations in local government or education providers in understanding their skills-related questions and what the future of work means for them. And we do so by using a wealth of data, starting from official statistics, so the things that you and I can find on the Eurostat, for example, or on other governmental bodies, websites. And then we have big data powered by AI and machine learning in terms of job postings, which was what Rolf was just mentioning about, and which is something I will be focusing on in the presentation today. We have profiles data, so that's the other side of the coin. Job postings data tell us what employers are putting out and they're looking after in the labor market. Profiles data instead are the social profiles. It could be my own profile, it could be your profiles that we put online with our career history. And that can help identify the type of skills that we have and we bring to the labor market. And then the four things that we use to provide insights and analysis is taxonomies and classifications. And this is really the glue that bring different data sets together, because all different data sets speak different languages and they bring different things to the table. But in order to make sense of them and transform them into insights, we need to categorize them and speak a common language. So we offer that through taxonomies and classifications. The challenge here, why we're talking about having this conversation today about the skills-based hiring and the power of AI in this conversation, well, it's because organizations across the globe in many countries are facing skills pressures of different sorts. Here I cite a few numbers that we get from research, from our own research at Lightcast, as well as research from other organizations. But what we see is that 75% of companies are facing an acute talent and skill shortage. So that's quite a huge number. 3 out of 4 companies are facing a skill challenge. 48% for 48% of CEOs, labor and skill shortages remain one of the top 3 challenges behind inflation and geopolitical uncertainty. And according to our own data, Lightcast, 37% of the top 20 skills most requested by employers in the labor market have changed in the past 5 years. And 1 in 5 skills are entirely new. So the landscape is changing really fast. And in order to make informed decisions, we need to make sure that we are ahead of the game in trying to understand skills needs. And all in all, we also know that according to there are 1 billion jobs that are liable to be radically transformed by technology over the next decade, according to the World Economic Forum. So that's quite a big challenge. And employers talk a lot about skills. And what we are seeing is that qualifications are no longer enough in order to address the skills shortages and gaps that employers are facing. If we take the UK as a case study, for example, we see that in all the job postings that we have for the UK, and we are talking about over 80 million data points, job postings collected for the UK since 2012, 78% of the job postings for 2022 didn't list any education requirements. So the vast majority of job postings in the UK today don't really speak about education anymore, but they talk about skills instead. And when we go instead to a different labor market, the one for Germany, which is instead a very highly regulated market where each unique job postings actually specify a skill requirement and an education requirements, what we also see is that employers don't stop anymore at education requirements. They also start talking about skills. So here you can see an example of the top requested software skills that are being mentioned in manufacturing jobs in Germany. So they're not just talking about qualification, but they're talking about skills too. So education in itself is not enough. In order to understand the skill shortages, we need to start talking the skills language, because skills can be the common language that bring together all the different stakeholders in the ecosystem. So this is very much similar to what Anu was just showing us earlier, because I think it doesn't really matter from where we approach the challenge. Skills is the solution in this space, and trying to have a common language about it is what can really make the difference here. So one of the things that we do at Lightcast to try and bridge this gap is create a skills taxonomy where we bring together all the wealth of data that we see in job postings from the UK, from America, Europe, Australia, and we try to categorize the skills that employers mention in these job postings. And there is a huge wealth of data, not just in terms of data points, in terms of job postings, but also in terms of the skills that get picked up. At the moment of speaking, I put here that we have over 32,000 skills in our taxonomy. Last time I checked, it was 32,900. So we're reaching the 33,000 because there are so many skills that employers mention in their job postings. And the good thing about having this taxonomy is that we can help organize all this wealth of data, all this number of skills in different categories. We talk about common skills, specialized skills, and software skills. So from the more general transferable skills that we can find in many jobs, for example, communication skills, it's an essential skills that we see across the labor market, to the more technical and digital skills that can be more specific to specific jobs. And these skills are organized hierarchically around 400 categories, subcategories, and 32 categories. And so this helps creating a plan for the overall insights that we present in the labor market. And this is particularly helpful for a number of use cases. On one end, if we think about education provision, we can see that education providers are responding to this need or increased need of talking about skills rather than education qualification overall. And one thing that we see education providers using this type of data for is to adjust and update their curriculum provision so that it aligns with labor market's need. So by having a common skills taxonomy, you can map out all the skills that you currently have in your curriculum that you currently offer against all the skills that the labor market needs, and try to see if there's any gap between the two and identify the gaps and adjust and update your curriculum. And the other things that education providers are doing to bridge this gap is through the introduction of new shorter ways of learning, such as micro-credentials, which allow for the development of very specific skills, which are then what is sought after by the market. So, you know, if you are a person that looking to either upskill or retrain, you can upskill or retrain in a specific skill rather than having to go through, I don't know, a whole university qualification that can take up to 3 years. Now, the value to think about a skills-based organization or being a skills-based organization is quite big also for corporate organizations. What we see is that the organizations that we work with that have a skills-based approach to hiring and also to training tend to be more resilient because they are more adaptable. They tend to be more equitable and innovative in the way they approach the ways of working. They can recruit more strategically, which is particularly important in a labor market where we increasingly see labor shortages and really a fight for talent, because having a skills-based approach to hiring helps recruiters and hiring managers speak the same language, so understand clearly what the needs are for the company. And it also helps internally a company because having a skills-based approach to hiring, but also to career pathways and training helps incentivize and reward learning alongside identifying clear learning pathways for the people that are in your company. So based on this, because we see quite a lot of value in this type of approach, we've also identified a set of ways in which we can support companies through this process of becoming a skills-based organization. There's a lot of data in this slide, but the point is not going through each of the single bullet point that you see here, but it's more trying to understand and break down in actionable steps all the different ways in which you can become a skills-based organization. The first step is really to diagnose. So we can use a skills taxonomy to understand and assess the current skills needs of a company. make an inventory and evaluate where each department is in terms of skills needs. And from this initial assessment, we can then help plan workforce strategies, understand what taxonomies you may need, as well as build governance and change management plans using skills data. And from then on, you can take a number of different steps around architecting, analyzing, and optimizing your workforce through the lenses of skills. And this is possible through the combination of using AI and the skills taxonomy together, because by combining these two things, we can assess, we can make an inventory of all the skills that are available in your organization, benchmark them against the market. So we can see your skills, the skills of your competitors, and trying to understand where you are compared to your competitors. Identify any future skills needs. So we can identify the skills that are being disruptive in your specific sector, the skills that are emerging, the skills that are declining. And we can identify any skills gap and develop roadmaps to go from where you are today to become a future ready organizations. And there are a number of different tools that we do this with, but at the bottom line of everything is having an open skills taxonomy that you can find on our website, and I will be putting the link to the taxonomy in the chat in a moment, that can help speak this common language and optimize your recruitment and retention strategies. And I want to finish on this slide, which for me is very important, which is, okay, we're talking about becoming a skills-based organization. All well and good, seems like a good thing to have, but I think there's also another thing that we need to mention, which is what is the risk of not becoming a skills-based organization. We're seeing that the labor market is changing so rapidly, and we're seeing new trends coming up every day. We've seen recently with ChatGPT, for example, how disruptive this can be in the labor market. Having skills-based insight can help having full visibility about what's happening in the labor market right now, and therefore taking informed decision to the next step. I really like the metaphor that skills-based hiring can be like navigating with a compass, and not doing that is like navigating without a compass, because skills can provide directional guidance that can really make a difference in workforce planning and retention. So I'm going to stop it there. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand back to Rolf.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Elena, for your presentation. Yeah, I like this analogy with the compass and the navigation. I guess that sometimes it seems like you are in the jungle and there are so many skills that you have to tackle, in particular when you are in a larger organization. And then often like an organization has already some sort of skills taxonomy, but then you have like this 50 main skills or this 100 competences that are mapped out, and all the learning is around them, etc. And yeah, and that might be also like a super interesting question later on. So to which extent you align that? So like the current skills taxonomy that is very small to the potentially super wide skills taxonomy, and how you get the best of both worlds, so to say. So normally Jake would do the presentation on that stage for LinkedIn, but since he is in the train at the moment around Paris and his internet is not so good, I will cover for him. The good thing is that I'm also working for LinkedIn, so I guess I can do that as well. I didn't do a presentation, but I guess I will have a couple of websites for you, and to do some sort of presentation as well. I mean, LinkedIn most probably for you is well known. I guess most of the people who are working in an international setting nowadays
Yeah, and did we lose Rolf?
Yeah, I think so. Let's hope he will join in a moment. Yes, yeah, there he is. Just connecting.
So no internet in Paris and Berlin.
There he is.
Okay, so I have to, I guess, share my screen again. So, all right. So you can see my screen and my LinkedIn profile, and I guess that's something that most of you are familiar with. So within your LinkedIn profile, you do have a range of informations already. I'm switching that into the English version. So you do have, for example, a list of occupations, so your experiences, and here, and maybe you didn't see that yet because it's a relatively recent feature, you can also add your skills and yeah, various other organizations, etc., that you are conducting work in. What you can also add, and what I think is really, really interesting, is, for example, volunteering work or projects, because also here you can gather really interesting skills. And then, so this LinkedIn profile is basically what LinkedIn, what's the backbone of LinkedIn. And in total, we do have a lot of such profiles, when I say, so more than 900. So I'm just resizing the screen a little bit. So we have 930 million members, meanwhile, so even more than stated here. A lot of companies or organizations, schools and skills. And the most interesting thing is, of course, the correlation between like the members and the sector in which they are working, because often the sector also has an influence on what skills you would need to apply. And so for the members, typically, so they go to LinkedIn to connect with their peers, with their colleagues, to see what are the industry trends, but also to identify jobs, okay? And they do so by browsing through jobs, like, for example, here you can see there are a range of job openings at Speaks. And when I go through such a job opening, I see what's required and what are the skills that would match and what are the skills that I would still need to obtain in order to apply for that particular job. Like, for example, here I would have to apply Spanish or analytical skills, etc. And I also get, if I have a premium profile, some interesting insights as well into other applicants and from where they are coming from, etc. And so, like, when we compare the LinkedIn profile, the skills there, where you want to go, like, for example, you want to apply for a certain job, then of course you can bridge that skill gap through some sort of learning, and that's where LinkedIn Learning comes into play. And that was, I would say, one of the first big moves of LinkedIn to enter this space of artificial intelligence. I mean, now, of course, everyone speaks about artificial intelligence. This blog post is from June 2020, like from 3 years ago, but it already, you know, like illustrates that Netflix-like experience, which is based on your profile data, your activity data, but also where you would like to go, and then gives you these recommendations. Okay, and gradually there have been more and more social aspects being embedded into that kind of learning experience, which is super interesting. So if you want, you can read about it, you know, more in detail, and also look at the second blog post. There's a part 2 where they look at this, you know, collaborative filtering and interaction that you do with the system. But of course, the core idea is this, what is called like the skills narrative. And the skills narrative for LinkedIn is relatively recent. So it started in the pandemic. And why was it so interesting in the pandemic? Because there were entire sectors that suddenly were out of job. So, for example, people in the hospitality sector also. And what LinkedIn was thinking about was, if you wanted to change your occupation, you know, from like a waiter to any other occupation, it really is about knowing what skills do you have, what skills do you need in order to get into the other occupation, and look into what gets you there. Okay, so, and for this they have kind of like created a skills graph as part of the economic graph, where they looked into, okay, what are the emerging top skills and how could you transition potentially also your occupation title. And interestingly, the occupation title is also not so important anymore as it was in the past. And so like the skill, meanwhile, is really like the connecting element in between the job transition. So, and now what are we doing with that type of skill data? And this is now interesting for organization and to build skill inventories. And Elena talked a little bit about that, what Lightcast is doing. So we look at a global representation. So like 1/3 of the global workforce is at LinkedIn. So there are around a bit more than 3 billion people. So we have almost 1 billion people on LinkedIn. And the of course, saturation in certain jobs is relatively high. For example, here we look at a filter called what skill is, you know, who has a skill, artificial intelligence. So, and when you analyze that, you can see, okay, like where is that talent now located? And you could indicate that it would, for example, extremely difficult in San Francisco or in Bengaluru to hire someone with that particular skill. And for you, imagine you are a manager or, you know, like you're leading an organization or so, you want to know how expensive would it be for me to get that skill? Now everyone is talking about AI. Maybe I should also include AI into my you know, offering. So but how expensive would it be? Well, if you are having your offices in these top locations, it would be very expensive because the hiring demand is extremely high and you would compete against, you know, the top players. So here, maybe you would start developing your own people and you invest into that. And you're offering people say, yeah, wouldn't that be something for you to go through a program and I give you a coach who's guiding you on that path, etc. You know, so of course there are a range of other organizations, but of course you can also look into your own organization. So this tool Talent Insights allows you to create a mapping for your own organization and then to look into you know, what skills are there in which region, what's the seniority there, where do people come from which universities, and so on. But the interesting thing here, and that's something we can maybe also later on discuss, is what's what you know as an employer. You know what someone states on their LinkedIn profile, but often people use a certain skill and there are nested skills within that skill, okay? And they might not even be aware of that. And this was something that was developed just recently, which is a skills taxonomy that encompasses nested skills. I don't know, probably Lightcast is doing something similar as well. So here you see an example of software development and what type of hard skills it includes. And for an employer, these hard skills are super interesting because they indicate a job readiness, okay? And also for ICOBC or for other organizations when we're dealing with micro-credentials, and we look at the employer's needs, it's often related to a particular skill where they want to see how quick would that person, if I hire him, be able to conduct the job that I have assigned for them, okay? And so LinkedIn in the past was not really like so much interested in a credential as a backup for a certain skill, but also here we added additional functionality yeah, around 9 months ago or so. I don't know if you have tried it out yourself, but if you are editing now your LinkedIn profile, you are asked, so what's the supporting element that you have that reasons the skill that you have and the level of skill proficiency, okay? Level of skills proficiency is of course another topic that I'm very interested about, you know, your ideas later, and in particular what Head AI and Lightcast are doing here as well. You can of course also add products, you know, certain product knowledge. If you are an SAP S/4HANA administrator, for example, you know, you would add that here, or Microsoft Azure administrator, something like that, or Photoshop, Illustrator, tools like that. Yeah. So, and the interesting thing here, of course, is that eventually when you have these skills added and you have your profile, you are potentially approached by people either internally, so internal in your organization, or external in your organization. And this idea of internal hiring becomes more and more interesting. So this is, for example, what a recruiter would see when they're using a product called LinkedIn Recruiter. They would see, okay, we have like around 1 billion people on the platform, 120 million are open for a job, like for a different job. And so the interesting thing is that within LinkedIn, for example, there are 22,000 internal candidates, you know, 22,000 people who could fit. And now, of course, I could go through a filter. Yeah. So who at LinkedIn would have, for example, skills in artificial intelligence? And that might lead me to an internal recruiting process where I can save much more money and ensure also what we call like a cultural fit, you know, someone who really has proven himself maybe in the organization and would fit well in that type of culture. Yeah, so this is a little bit of a snippet from the LinkedIn ecosystem, what we are doing there when we are looking at like skills inventories and how to leverage AI to like analyze skills, bridge skill gaps through LinkedIn Learning, for example, but also identify skills and look into the nested skills inherent in a skill, as well as internal placing and recruiting. Thanks a lot. And with this, I would hand the floor over to you, Jan, to facilitate the questions. Maybe you have looked into the chat, or if someone of you has a question, of course, feel free to post it in the chat as well.
Yeah, there haven't been there are no questions yet. I think there are a lot of questions coming from your presentations. Thank you very much. I think it was very dense in the sense of connecting the dots between the different approaches, but also the implications. And that would be actually one of my first questions also. So over the last 2-3 years, we came to understand that the ecosystem of credentials, education, recognition, and maybe at the center, skills development, they were not yet connected. There were barriers between that. They were partially siloed. There were siloed developments. And now through AI and also through creating taxonomies and connecting skills with credentials, with learning, with recognition, there seems to be a new opportunity now. And my first question actually would be, how would HR especially profit from that development, both for hiring and development? And I think also what was mentioned that that the skills taxonomy is very often siloed. That means with AI, we now have the possibility to not only look outside as hiring or look inside for development, but actually have a holistic perspective on both our labor market and the internal needs. So what you described, Arno, also the delta between what you need and what's out there and how you can close this gap. So my first question would be, how do you see what is needed on the HR side actually to benefit from the advances here and with AI and skilled taxonomies?
So Arno, would you like to answer that?
Yes, thank you so much, Jan, for this question. And I think first of all, kind of open our mind for the skills, and that we can even take the current, like I stated in my presentation, that we don't need to start to talk about skills, but we can talk about our daily work and the text what we actually produce in daily basis. And the skills has put kind of the skills taxonomy has put us in the silos. That's our kind of a approach for this thing. And in order to now let the skills help to execute the strategy, we can take those actual daily documents and let the AI to take those skills, the words from that data, and help them. Therefore, the profit and the benefit of HR is it's actually getting there in the really strategic position. How is her, she, or he really helping the company organizations to do the strategy, have the human capital for executing the strategy what we want to do in the company. So take the actual daily documents, daily resources, and use that in order to understand what is the skills demand and what is the actual skills inventory, and make the data, the AI help to combine those.
Any other thoughts, Elena?
No, I agree very much with what Anu is saying. And for me, the answer is why should an HR person care about this? Because skills bring clarity. So we have so many different data points and different informations that we need to translate into something that it's easy, simple, and actionable. And skills helps doing that. As Anu said, it doesn't have to be me sitting down somewhere mapping all the skills. You can talk to me about tasks and then, or your daily job, and then having AI mapping the skills and doing the exercise. But the point here is the results of what come out of the AI, and the mapping can really help you, first of all, understanding what are your current strengths as a company, where are the gaps, where are you behind in the market, what kind of skills you need to get. And then with this information, you can have a clear strategy about whether it's best for you to invest in your current workforce. So having a strategy to build internally your current skill set, or whether you have to go out and buy, so hire new people with specific skills, and then you have clarity about what skills you're actually after, rather than a vague profile about a certain position. And then as well, in terms of from an employee point of view, so satisfaction of the people that work from your company, if you have a skills-based approach to this, you can clearly set up steps of development that your employee can follow over time. And also, by the fact that skills are itemized, you make it small and easy, in the sense that it's not as overwhelming and as having 100 different things that you need to think about all at the same time. You can focus on the specific skills that brings the highest value for your company. So I can see a lot of different ways in which we could use this.
Thank you. Timothy Andrews is asking actually a very good question. Let's say the danger of platform-specific taxonomies, and so actually a kind of ecosystem lock-in. And two questions here: how can we make sure that we don't fall back into small nation states or platforms, each having their own languages, also then their own currency when it comes to credentials? And maybe is AI the tool to bridge that? What do you think about this? How can we overcome the danger of platform-specific skill taxonomies and skill lists?
I totally agree with Timothy. This is actually the fundamental thing, that how do we now overlap these silos? How do we bridge the different silos and the different vendor-specific skills taxonomies? And again, I would go back to the actually knowing that it is text, it's unstructured text, it's people who is really producing this text when we are dealing with the skills, being those the job ads or being that the personal people's descriptions. And therefore now the help of this language model type of approach, where we can take the AI now with the having its already existing language model, which is now, as Elena also said, there's a lot of skills related words. Also in our ontology or in the language models, there's about 40,000 words, work related words. And that's the basis how the AI can now start to help us to kind of analyze, extract those skills from any of those texts, from different contexts, from different solutions. And the head AI language model is here, the solution, what we are proposing to kind of help to go beyond those silos and bring the skills related words for so that we can really take the different data into actionable insight.
I'll jump in on this one as well, and I agree with Timothy that there is a danger of having different silos. I would add one layer of complication. Actually, if you go to any organization and any HR person in a different company, they speak their own skills language too. So it's not just different vendors having different skills taxonomies, but each company speaks their own skills language. So I think here, and that's one of the things that we do, is we have our own skills taxonomy, but we are also aware and use official taxonomies. So for example, in the US, you have ONET as a skills taxonomy. In Europe, you have ESCO, and we do try to make the most and try to bridge the gaps between the different taxonomies. But I think it's less of a point about which taxonomy you use, but rather what do you do with the insights that you can get from this kind of exercises. And that's what can really make the difference. It doesn't really matter if it's like Lightcast branded, LinkedIn, or Ad AI, is what you do with it.
Okay, maybe we have time for one further question, and then the final words from maybe Rolf. At some point, I saw, for example, in your slides, Elena, that the center should be the human being. Right now, the presentations were very much on from a platform perspective or even an ecosystem perspective. What do you think is needed in order to harvest the potential of skills-based development, AI matching, and so on for the individual user, not only from a corporate perspective, but really from a kind of also adoption perspective and an inclusive perspective? How can AI plus skills-based hiring development help general people, the humanity of people?
Really good question. So I think the first way in which we should do it is, again, by keeping it simple and bringing clarity, because that's the thing that can help the common person the most. And then the other thing to consider is, again, the ecosystem, because yes, the person is at the center, but if all different parts of the ecosystem use different systems, the person at the center gets really confused about all of this and doesn't know where should they go, what they should believe in. And so it's really the best thing we can do for people is really all starting working together on this.
I also would like to highlight that this is very good that we are talking about human centricity, and we are really taking the people at the center of when we are dealing with the skills data, with the personal data. And therefore, it's crucial that we also think that the AI is also relying a lot in history data. So how can we kind of ensure that the data that we have used to teach our AIs, what is there, and how can we ensure kind of ethical things on that we are not kind of having any biased data sets there in that sense. But also what I mentioned now in EU, we are really working on this human-centric trusted ecosystem. So there's a lot of kind of ensuring that people know what we are dealing with their data, we can help them, but with whom we are sharing their data, all these type of content management things related to that. So there's different layers, but first of all, I'm very happy that we are actually talking about this thing with the human-centric approach, kind of taking that at the center of this discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we are nearly at the end. Rolf, you want to?
Exactly. Yeah, respecting everyone's time. It's as usual, you know, we get into discussion and then it's already over before it really started and so on. But the good thing is that for those of you who are in Senegal next week, we will have time for a more in-depth conversation. Then also outline, there's a symposium in December, in end of November, actually on the 21st of November in Berlin, right before the online Educa. So if you're there And then I guess, Jan, for the next session when we meet, we'll inform everyone by the newsletter. So subscribe to the newsletter definitely. And then maybe we schedule 2 hours. We do half an hour presentation, and then we do breakout sessions, and then we do plenaries. And then we can really tap into these more in-depth questions related to taxonomies, ontologies, user-centric design, etc. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And with this, I give the last words to Armin to close the session. Thank you, everyone.
So being mindful of your time, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Special thanks to Anna and Elena, of course, to Rolf for jumping in. Hope we meet again. Interesting conversation, and hope we can continue this. Going forward, we plan to come up with a regular series of webinars, so I hope we can build a larger following as we go. So have a great day. Thank you very much once more, and bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.